Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya. I'm so grateful that you're here listening to this podcast episode or watching it. Would love for you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. And if you haven't already done so, please follow this podcast so that you don't miss any future episodes and we can get this podcast out to the wider community. Today, we have an honor of welcoming Linda Henderson to the podcast. Linda is a retired nurse who's dedicated 37 years of her life caring for others. Her journey took a profound turn after the tragic loss of her daughter, igniting a deep passion to help others navigate the complex path of grief. Drawing on her extensive experience and enhanced by certifications in professional grief and development, coping with child loss, and bereavement counselling, Linda transformed her pain into purpose. 9 years ago, into her personal journey through grief, she poured her story into her book called The Road of Love and Hope. Now, Linda's mission is to inspire, empower, and bring hope to those facing grief and life's toughest challenge. Linda, welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast.
Thank you, Anthony. It is my pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you here. Linda, could you tell us a little bit about the journey leading up to the point of writing this book and then also helping other people as well who are going through grief and so on?
My daughter, Andrea, was 27 years old, and she was living in the prime of her life. She had every girl's dream, this wonderful wedding that, of course, parents helped her with, and met the love of her life and married, and they had purchased a house. She had a 2-year-old little boy. She was pregnant with her second baby. And on December 20th, 2011, she was in a motor vehicle accident where she was killed instantly. So the cause of the accident was a transport truck driver. He was distracted and he was texting and driving while having an argument with his girlfriend, and they were stopped turning left, almost returning. Andrea was a passenger, her coworker was the driver. They were stopped and almost back to their place of employment when the transport truck driver hit them and pushed them into the oncoming traffic, where they were hit yet again by another vehicle, and both the driver, her coworker, and Andrea were killed. So that was the start of my journey and my changed life, starting from ground zero.
Wow.
Mhm.
I'm so sorry to hear about Andrea passing in that way. I could I couldn't imagine what it's like. Um, could you share what motivated you to write the book, The Road of Love and Hope, and share your story with others, like what the journey was for you writing that book?
When I was out walking, through the years of coping with my loss, one of my major strategies for me was walking. And about 9 years into my loss, I came back from my walk and said to my husband, "That's it. I'm going to write a book." I had mentioned it before, but the timing wasn't there. It just had to be that right time. And I came home and said, "I'm going to write a book." And the reason I wanted to write a book is because I just felt that I experienced my loss, the devastation, and everything that umbrella of grief holds underneath it,
Mm,
depression, anxiety, all of those things. And I think I was beginning to realize that I was a survivor, and I wanted to put my pain into purpose, and I wanted to write a book. And my whole goal at the time was, if I can help one person, one family that's dealing with this kind of pain, to give them hope and inspiration, then I will have succeeded. And
mm,
that's how
mm,
the book came about.
mm. And did
Mhm.
writing the book help you process your grief as well?
During the time that I was writing my book, I didn't think so because I
Mm,
had to, in that first year when I lost Andrea, I just wanted to, I couldn't get my hands on enough books about near death experiences. I just, I was born, raised in a Christian home, believed in heaven, and I just wanted to know where she was, and I wanted, that confirmation of heaven. And so one of the books that I read was, at that time, I was about 6 months into my journey, and it was written by a psychiatrist who had experienced the near-death experience. And I thought, oh, I've been a nurse. I can deal with all this medical jargon. That's no problem. And I started reading it, and my grief brain just couldn't process all of the
mm,
terminology and everything. So I said, I want to write my book straight from a broken hearted mama, so that if I'm sitting here talking to a person who has just lost their child or their loved one, that I can just talk about that raw experience without anything complicated. And I wanted it to be relatable. So that journey of writing my book, having to research anxiety, depression, fears, anger, all of those things that I experienced, and having to research that was I didn't feel it was healing at the time. It was very, very difficult. And there were
mm.
days when I would be writing and my husband would come home for lunch, and I was just, be still in my PJs, and at the end of the day, have a quick supper and go to bed. I just would have to, quit for the day, and just give in to the grief. It was hard reliving every one of those emotions so that I could properly describe what it actually felt like. And so I didn't feel the healing process then,
Mm,
but now I know that it was the best thing I ever did.
mm,
It gave me a new sense of direction. It gave me a new purpose to reach out to other people, to give again the hope and inspiration that if I can do this, you can do it as well.
absolutely.
So it has been a healing journey for sure.
Yeah. And that pain would have been overwhelming. And like, how did you push through those moments? What gave you the strength to push through those moments?
Well, in the early, in those first few days, months, weeks, I can't really tell you. I do know that my husband took a month off work, and I was highly medicated and sedated, and I was just like living outside of my body. I could feel my heart beating, but I was just not here physically. So he would just, I was so absorbed in the pain and the loss. I just wanted to be with her. I wanted to reach out and touch her, and I wanted to be with her. And so I didn't think about those normal activities of daily living. So my husband would come home from work, or the first month that he was home. So when did you last have a shower? Literally. I didn't think about those things. When did you last
Mm,
brush your teeth? Right?
mm,
I needed guidance. I needed someone to help me through that. And gradually, when he went back to work, time has a way of pushing us along in life, whether we want to go or not.
mm,
And so it's a passageway, and you go through the time, and gradually, you know, uh, you have to let life in. You step out the door, you see the sun. That's the first little increment of, I'm allowing life to come in again.
mm,
And slowly, I'll see my grandchild smile, and then I'll smile, and then it'll be smiling without feeling guilty. And
mm,
gradually, life has a way of, you have to say yes to life.
mm,
First of all, you have to say yes to life and allow life to come back in.
mm,
And, that was journaling. I was seeing my doctor regularly for all the medication changes. I connected with a support group. In those days, Zoom wasn't really a thing. But I did have a support group with bereaved moms, which, allowed me to go there once a week. And it was a safe place.
mm,
And we all felt the same pain, the same connection. So all those things just helped me to move along and realize that life was happening, whether I wanted it to happen or not.
Mm. What would you hope that the readers would take away from when they're going through their own grief from reading this book?
From reading my book,
Mm,
well, I tried to talk um, a lot about those early moments. I talked about my story and what happened, and those early moments of living with the shattered pain,
mm,
and just to give recognition to the fact that it's okay to cry. It's okay to shed those tears. We cry because we love. Grief is just the unspoken love that we
mm,
can't physically give our loved one. So I talked a lot in the book about depression and anxiety, and just to know and recognize that these things are normal, to try and make the person feel normal, because in the beginning you feel like you're losing your mind.
mm,
I said to my husband one time, I don't know what brain damage feels like, but I feel like there's something wrong with my head. I feel like I'm brain damaged, but I mean, in actuality, your brain is reorganizing all that information that's happened. And of course you're going to have anger and fears. And so I talked about all those things, and then gradually working the practical ways, finding
mm,
your hope, and finding hope through the love of your loved one.
mm. Yeah. So you mentioned anger. How did you like? What was the first intense emotion that you felt after your daughter's death?
Anger, absolutely,
Yeah.
because you know you're angry. The grief makes you angry because you don't have your loved one. But the biggest reason for my anger, you need was the driver.
Mm,
Why did he have to do that? And so
mm,
I was very angry. I mean, I was raged. um, I think in dealing with anger, you have to first of all know why. What is the reason why I'm angry? And I think, through the counseling, I had counseling for 9 years. And so,
mm,
talking with the counselor and working through my grief and recognizing why I was angry was the first step. And then dealing with the anger in healthily ways. That's where the walking came in.
mm,
And the medication, of course, helped me. It's not maybe for everybody, but it helped um, to help the crying and the moods, and the depression. And then it allowed me to walk out the door. And I still, to this day, walking is my big thing. I go for 45, 50 minutes a day, and that's where I can cry and scream and yell and talk to God and talk to Andrea. And I come home and all those emotions are released. The anger is released in a
mm.
healthy way. And then I'm ready to move on to the next step again, the
Yeah.
next whatever I have to do in the afternoon. Or Mhm.
Yeah. So you mentioned about talking to God, and crying out. Um, h- what would you say to the listeners in terms of connecting to a higher source, or connecting to a source like God or universe that will help you through that process of grief?
Well, I think in life we all practice faith, whether we realize it or not. But in a situation like this, I think you need to have faith. You need to have faith in something, some higher power, faith. You need to have faith that tomorrow will be better, or the next hour may be better.
Mm,
You need to have faith that this is going to improve. And I think we all need to have faith in something,
mm,
right?
mm,
As we go through the difficulties in life, whatever that may be,
mm.
or whoever that may be.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you go for walking, and you talk to God, and so this is your way that you handle your emotions in this day and age, in this state today.
Today, I mean, I still struggle with depression. I'm not on any medication or anything now. I don't have counseling anymore. Um, but I do journaling, not journaling. I write, after writing my book, I just got the desire to put my feelings into paper. So I write articles. I've had a few articles that have been submitted to, one of them is the Compassionate Friends of the State of the USA, and they submitted my article there on time. And so I do a lot of writing. When I'm feeling not so good, I just pour all my emotions into an article. Maybe one day they'll all come into another book, who knows. But
Mm,
walking is another thing. And I think, it's just making that conscious effort every
mm,
day to allow love and life to take over instead of grief. It's a matter
yeah.
of controlling life, and not letting grief take over. Grief has to have its moments. You can't
Yeah.
bury it. It can't be smothered. But and I have my days, where I just go to bed.
Mm,
Sometimes I can't do any of those things and I still go to bed. But
mm,
the tools that I use are very helpful. Just to know that I can be on a podcast and give my story, to say that if I can build my life from ground zero here and have nothing. I mean, I've had the suicidal ideation. There was a time when I was very close to taking my life because I didn't
mm,
want to live anymore. I have a better understanding of suicide now. I didn't want to die, but I could not take the pain anymore and I chose life.
mm, mm,
So,
mm, mm. Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah.
grief is often described as a lifelong journey. It's something that just like fear and anxiety, and so grief is one of those things that when it happens, it goes with us in life, right? So how did you begin to shift that surviving each day to actually finding that meaning and purpose in your life? What like was it the book that writing the book
Yeah,
was
in
that the
in
what
in
gave you the
writing my
purpose?
book, and doing all the research and just reading more, all the information and research and whatnot, I just I realized that love is eternal.
Mm,
The love and bond that my daughter and I have is eternal, and it's untouched by death. And that love is what keeps me going. That love and honor. Every day I live, I honor her. It I go outside and I enjoy the beautiful weather and I
mm,
talk to her and let her know about how beautiful the day is. I go to
mm,
the beach and I feel the water and the sand in my toes and I say, Andrea, feel this. Like, this is wonderful. I'm doing this for you, sweetie. Right. So I live my life for her, the positivity of her. I know she
mm,
would want me to.
mm.
Sure.
Thank you. So, what when you were doing nursing, that how did that play? Like, how did you get the understanding and also being able to navigate grief, like from your experience as a nurse?
My nursing, uh, many, many, many times I worked with families where their loved one passed on,
Mm,
held their hand, even cried with them. But at the end of my shift, I could go home and I could say, that was terrible. That was a horrible experience, but it wasn't mine. So my nursing did not help me at all. I don't think
mm,
one little bit. How
mm.
could I ever be prepared for
No.
losing a child through my
Mm,
nursing? I
mm,
knew of death.
mm.
I knew of death, but when it came to me dealing with my child, it
There was no.
I can say
Yeah.
it was as though I didn't have a nursing career at all because it's
Mm,
now my life.
mm,
You know,
mm.
it,
So, what
it,
have been some of your biggest lessons you've learned about life and resilience through this journey?
Grief has taught me a lot of things. It's it's very ugly. It's a messy process. You have to allow yourself to feel all those emotions. But as time goes by, you do learn.
Mm,
And one of the biggest things that grief has taught me is that time is valuable and precious.
mm,
And today is the only little piece of time that we have control of, because yesterday is gone and we
mm,
don't know if tomorrow's coming, and we don't even know if this afternoon is coming or the next
mm,
hour is coming. So I take life and enjoy the today moments. And that's what grief has taught me. Grief has taught me to have a better appreciation for nature, for life,
mm,
right?
mm,
I get joked. People always joke with me because I take pictures of everything. If I'm going for a walk and I see a weed that's got a beautiful blossom on it, I take a picture, because those are the small moments in
moments.
life that I now have an appreciation for. And I may not have, well, I know I wouldn't have really noticed that or cared enough before.
Mm,
So it's taught me the value of time and life, that life
mm.
is precious.
It's those
And
glimmer moments, right? Where you appreciate something and you take a snap. I mean, I'm the same. I go for a walk with my girlfriend or by myself, and I'll take a photo of the beach, because I live not far from the beach, and or I'll take a photo, because it's like, wow, look at this amazing day, and you're
yes,
capturing that moment, and as I say, you only ever have the present moment. Like you said, the past is gone and the future
mhm.
hasn't arrived. But in this present moment, in the moment, that's it. You don't, like you said, you don't know what's going to happen 5 minutes ahead. And it's embracing everything you can in that moment.
Absolutely,
Mm,
absolutely.
mm,
I just enjoy the fragrance of flowers and just, the warm summer breeze. And every time I enjoy all of those things, I talk to Andrea. It may not be out loud, but I talk to her inside, and
mm,
I enjoy it for her. She can't see those things. She can't feel those things. She can't smell those wonderful things. So I do everything for her, to continue her legacy, to keep her alive for
mm,
me. But grief has taught me all of those things. And
mm.
you don't think that grief is going to teach you anything, but it teaches it. You
It
become a
just,
changed person,
yeah,
completely changed.
yeah,
I'm not the
absolutely.
same person. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had a lot of grief in my life as well. I've lost a baby at 7.5 months, and also lost both my grandparents and parents, and it, yeah, I mean it's not the same story as with Andrea, but it affects everyone in some shape or form. What advice would you give someone who's struggling to accept the person they've become after significant loss?
Oh, to accept the new person that they
Mm,
are, the new changed
mm,
person.
mm,
It's like looking in the mirror and saying many times, I don't know you anymore. You're not the same person. It's we with the grief, there is the loss, but we experience so many secondary losses, and we don't think about that in the beginning. But as time goes on, you realize all the different losses. I remember asking myself, am I still a mother? Like, can I still people will ask you how many children you have. Do I still include her? Like, I went through all of that, and then, to realize that yes, I still am her mother. I will always be her mother. I'm a changed person. um to accept, I think that acceptance doesn't happen one day. I accept who I am now. It's a
mm,
process. Grief is a process. And uh, accepting all those secondary losses, your loss of identity, like I was talking about. You lose your faith in life. You lose, if you have a religion base, you question that. And all of those things, it's a process to work through it. And then eventually you accept, because there are nicer things that of the secondary losses. They also, again, grief teaches that love is forever. And You just have to, accept what's happened and move along to provide and enjoy life.
Mm, mm. Yeah, absolutely. Earlier, you mentioned about when then you started meeting other people who've been through grief and so on. And so community and is important, and also those shared experiences that we have with other people, right? And they can be quite powerful, sharing stories with each other. What would you say to those who are grieving and feeling alone in their own pain?
To grief is a very lonely experience, but you are not alone. And I think to, it takes bravery to reach out and seek support,
Mm,
but it's definitely beneficial. After writing my book, I'm now connected with all the a grief community, on Facebook, all these groups for moms for grief, and to talk to these people and be around like-minded people who have experienced the same thing is comforting and is support. So I think, it is very important to reach out and be part, even if you just have one friend that you can phone and, have someone that can support you and reach out and say, I just need someone to talk to, or I need someone to listen to me.
mm,
And it's it's brave, and it's a big step to reach out and accept help, but it's something that is very helpful and beneficial for sure. It
mm.
is a lonely experience, but to be around other people gives the support that you are not
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, and that will take time to be able to from the time that you feel the grief to when that moment when that situation happens to actually being able to reach out. And what are some of the like if people are hesitant in reaching out, what could they do, or what could someone do to help them?
Well, I remember in my quiet moments at nighttime when I couldn't sleep, I would just go on the computer and I would reach out in my quiet way and in my private way from my own home where I didn't have to be, physically around people, but become part of chat groups and talk about the grief. And,
Mm,
hours in the morning, I'd be talking to people who've lost their loved ones, and I would be making that connection even though I didn't have, at that I didn't have in those days Zoom meetings where I can look forward to now on a Tuesday night and be with a group of people. I would definitely encourage reading. Like,
mm,
well, reading is helpful, but it's nice to be able to talk to someone, and that's what I did. There were lots of groups online, and I would encourage people to definitely try to do that, because there's healing when you can share your stories
yes,
with other
absolutely.
people and
Yeah,
share your pain.
yeah. So why do you feel it's so important to create these spaces for open conversations about loss and grief?
Um, it's supportive for the person that's feeling the pain, but I believe that society says, what do they give you, 2 3 days off work now when you lose a family
Really?
member?
Wow.
Something like that. I don't know what it's like there. I think 3 days we get here. If you're
Mm,
working and you have a family member that passes, 3 days off and then you're back to work. Society gives the message that, okay, you've suffered this loss, but life goes on and you have to just get back to life as it was before. But that's
mm,
not the way it is. I think society needs to hear this sort of thing, people talking about grief. And, here I am 12 years later, still talking about grief. And yes,
mm,
I'm still suffering. And yes, I still suffer from depression and anxiety and fears and all of those things. Um, Grief doesn't go away, it's part of
no.
you forever.
Yeah.
When I was writing my book, I had to include, I guess it's kind of a humorous part. I have a little Yorkie dog, and he was a puppy at the time, and he really, really hated to wear his harness to go for a walk. I'd put his harness, I'd have the harness in my hand, and he would just run away and didn't want that harness. But once I put the harness on him and took him outside, then it was like, oh, there's a whole world out here to explore. And great. And so that's how I look at grief. It is now part of my body.
Mm,
It is in every cell of my existence. So I just have learned, you learn as time goes by how to live with grief. Grief and love cohabitate in your heart. And so I put on my harness of grief and I go out into the world and I enjoy life, even with my grief,
mm,
because it
yeah,
never goes away.
yeah. So, apart from your book being published and people reading it, are there any other things that you're doing, like events that you're speaking at and so on?
I haven't gotten into the speaking as, as such yet. I am going to be doing a summit in January, the very first one. So I'm
Mm,
excited about that, and I'll be able to speak about grief and hope. I have been going to our local stores. I don't know what you call your bookstores. They're Indigo
Bookshops? Yep.
bookshops. Indigo is one company, right? And so they have their stores throughout the different areas where I live, and I go and do book signings. And so I'm out there in the community talking to people, and
Mm,
it's very enlightening and interesting and healing to talk to people about my story, but to also hear their stories. And
mm,
sometimes it doesn't even matter if I sell a book, it's just the experience of being out there and still, again, talking about grief. That, yeah, it needs to be talked about. It needs to be, people need to realize that it's not a hush hush. So I
mm,
go to the stores. I'm doing the podcast. I'm writing articles. I have one that's submitted to, like I said, the Compassionate Friends of the States. And then I have another one that's submitted through Substack, which is another
mhm,
online, that one.
mhm.
I have an article there, and there's another one going to be put on there now for the girl, and it's for grief through the holidays and coping. How do you cope with grief through the holidays, Christmas, and
Mm,
Thanksgiving, and so I'm looking more towards writing articles and submitting them to different magazines,
yeah.
and just to get the knowledge of grief out there and to try and make society understand that it is okay to still grieve years
Mm,
and years later. It
mm,
doesn't go away.
no. Do when you're talking when you're writing these articles and talking with people at the book signings and so on, what is their general like what do they say? What are the sentiments that they give you? You know, what's on their mind at the time?
Well, it's not like I'm sitting there trying to promote a romance novel, right? So it's definitely a genre that's, pretty narrow.
Mm,
And then, that's the thing too. You think of all those people that come and go in that store, and every if they haven't been touched by grief, we know they will be. But I mean, of all those people, the statistics are that somebody has lost someone or something that is very special to them in their life, but they just choose not to talk about it because that's what society says, right? But there are
mm,
people that come to talk to me. And I remember one day, one man came and talked to me about my book, and he said, can I buy it? I said, sure, yes, here, and so as he walked away, he said thank you, and he had tears in his eyes. So that was my success story for the day. It's like, I'm going to help this man navigate what he's going through, and that makes it all worthwhile. So there are
mm,
people that want to hear, because I have her picture there, and I have, I also published a book that Andrea wrote in high school, so I have that on display as well. And so everybody is interested. They want to hear the story about my daughter, so I get to talk about her all the time, which
that's
which
great.
is healing for me.
Mm, absolutely. So, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, if people wanted to, people have been listening to this podcast episode and keen to get in touch with you,
Mhm.
can they do that? And how can they find out more about the book? And do you have a website and so on?
Yes, I had a website and there was a great problem with it, and now I'm building a new one. But the book and my other book that I published for my daughter is that they are both available on Amazon. The Road of Love and Hope, Amazon, and under my name, Linda Henderson. The other book I published for my daughter is called Spooky Meets a Friend, and it's about a little black cat that learns how to share. And so I published that book for her in her honor. So they're both available on Amazon, and I gave you my social links, didn't I? My social
Yes.
media links,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And my website, not website, sorry, my email is lhenderson24 at cogeco, cogeco.ca. And you can email me and I can get you information about how to get the book. I can even mail it out. So,
Yeah. Okay. We'll put all that information into the podcast description, show notes, so that people
mhm,
can click on that and be able to get there. So
that's
we're
good.
at that stage now where I've got five quick fire questions for you, and you can choose to answer these in either one word or a quick short sentence. First question for you is, how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Success for me. Success for me is, it's not a one definition thing. Success for me is that I'm a thriver. I have survived and
Mm,
I'm thriving. I have
mm,
survived and I'm thriving every day, um, living my life to the
mm,
best version of me that I
mm,
can do. And so I found joy in suffering, and that's success. And the courage, to keep pursuing my journey of life. If I could just read quickly, um, my daughter Andrea's boss, when she passed, he read this at her funeral, and it's called Success. So, to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a better place, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is success.
mm, mm,
So that's success to me.
mm. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
I would say my mother, she taught me all the basics of life that I ever needed, um, to carry me through all of these adversities in life. Unconditional love. She loved me no matter what. Unconditional love, forgiveness, patience, all of those virtues. I would say that she is she's my inspiration.
Mm,
She's not here, but yeah, she's
mm,
the one who has inspired me the absolute most. And I'm
mm,
very fortunate to say that. I realize a lot of people don't have that.
mm,
They've had different things happening in life, but I'm very blessed.
mm. Yeah. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
I believe in God.
Mm,
I believe in heaven.
mm,
And I believe that I'm going to see my daughter again.
mm. Yeah. If you could go back to your younger self and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say to stay true to yourself and listen to your heart
Mm,
and stay in the company of positive, optimistic people.
mm, yeah, absolutely. And what is one
Mhm.
last message that you'd like to share with the world?
My motto that I pretty much have created is embrace the moments
Mm,
because, again, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So embrace the moments. And those moments can be, from I'm not crying and I can have a drink of water from those early days when you're in grief, or embrace the moments of nature, embrace the moments of life, cherish the memories, because those memories are moments of time that we had with our loved one, or the memories of a special time in life when you were healthier or happier. Embrace the moments, cherish the memories, and by doing that, it gives hope for tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Linda, for joining us today on the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you all the success, and also helping people out there who have gone through grief. And if you've been listening to this podcast episode and you've been inspired or you've been touched by what Linda has shared and you'd like to get in touch with her, please do connect with her. And there'll be links in the podcast description. And also, if you'd like to get in touch with me, feel free to. I'm also running a 5-day challenge on the 25th of November to the 29th, which is around, it's called Shift Happens. And it's really helping people going through these transitions in life, but also in the workplace, because change is constant. It's inevitable. It's always with us. So there's a link. Join the challenge, and I'll see you on the 25th. And if you haven't already done so, please make sure that you share this episode with someone that may benefit from listening to this, your friends, your family, your workmates. And please follow and subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes and we can get this podcast out to the wider community. Lastly, I just want to say you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.
Thank you.